All right, it's 13 minutes past 4. I'm Ayo Obe, and this is Countdown 2019. Countdown the number of things today because there's inauguration coming up. Countdown to the ministers who are leaving office very soon. But first, the idea segment with Ayo Obe. We're going to be talking about political office holders who are not going to be returning to office. They include most notably governors who will not have a second term, or those who've already served out their second terms. Things like awarding late contracts, appointments, which will be happening between now and inauguration day, as well as some who will be granting amnesty or pardon to some convicts. You can follow the program on Twitter at Countdown 2019, at Rotimi Sankore, at Ayo Obe, at SS Equesili, at Nigeria Info FM, at Ideas Radio NG. Tweet out all these handles if you've got questions or comments. You can also talk to us via WhatsApp. Our number is 0809 597 805. Again, 0809 597 5805. Good evening, Rotimi Sankore. Of course, good evening, Ayo Obe.
Hi, good evening,
It's a
and
good Friday.
Good Friday greetings to all the listeners.
Yes. Okay, so I'm also incidentally JP too, you know. So
good Friday mood.
Well, I'm not sure what JP is. Oh, Jerusalem Pilgrim. Okay. Yeah. Well, yes, it's
justice of peace.
well, not a justice of peace. But yes, it is the mood. But we are going to bring us right back from the world of higher things to the murky world of politics, and in particular, Rotimi, I think we need to discuss this question of what's been happening with regard to the outgoing governors. How lame duck is a lame duck outgoing governor?
Well, lame duck because everybody can count the days they have to stay in office, but their successors-elect are complaining that they are not lame at all in awarding contracts and appointing people. And there is a whole lot of, is rancor the right word, with so many governors-elects declaring that the incumbent governors that were either defeated at the polls or failed, as they describe it, to plant their surrogates in office.
Yeah.
They are alleging that, some are alleging that the incumbents are setting booby traps, crippling the administration, or otherwise awarding last-minute contracts that are not sustainable, job for the boys, appointing people to all kinds of positions, and backdating the appointment dates. I think that's a dastardly one if it is true.
That is certainly,
yeah.
that certainly raises questions
Yes.
about ethics and integrity.
Yes, because if you appoint someone in your last month and you backdate it 6 months,
Then effectively you're saddling your successor with bills and liabilities and
Yes.
responsibilities that for which actually the state has not received any
Service.
any service,
Yes.
and that's really the problem. It's not so much that a lame duck governor or an outgoing governor does not have the power to continue to govern
Until the
within,
last day.
but that government must certainly be within the parameters of, when it comes to spending, it has to be within the parameters of any spending that has been approved in the state budget. They can't just suddenly wake up and start spending money anyhow. But if the governor is now making appointments which the state hasn't received any benefit for, then it becomes a problem of, as I say, integrity and ethics.
in fact, just to quote one report from the leadership newspaper, it says the governors-elect are lamenting that their predecessors are not just leaving empty treasuries, huge debts, salary and pension arrears, and other liabilities. They are also issuing contracts, giving out gifts, luxury cars, houses to their appointees and associates, and in some cases giving out land, although I'm not quite sure how the land one impacts on the governor-elect, except that it reduces what he can give out.
Yes, it reduces what, I mean, obviously, I think that what's always interesting is that this is not a new phenomenon in Nigeria. I mean, if you were to, particularly in the case of Ekiti State, where the government changed hands from Governor Ayo to Governor Kayode Fayemi, is the same complaint. And it's also the same complaint that Fayose made when he was an incoming governor on the heels of Governor Fayemi. And in the most recent case, Governor Fayemi met several appointments that had been made. Hundreds of people had been appointed onto the state payroll. And of course, once you are a civil servant, it's not your appointment has a measure of statutory flavor. So it's not easy to just reverse the appointments, as one might think. One has to really go into the validity of those appointments to see whether they can stand. But otherwise, you do get saddled with it. And if even in trying to negotiate these people's way out, you have to deal with the trade unions and other vested interests in the state.
With regard to that kind of example specifically, so in Adamawa State, the incoming, the governor-elect, Fintiri, has cautioned the outgoing Bindo administration against what they've described as last-minute employment and award of bogus contracts. So he says that he understands that the state government is set to issue employment letters to 1,540 post-primary school teachers.
Yes, I mean, the thing is that it's easy to just say that as soon as an outgoing governor does anything, it's designed to line people's pockets. But actually, if you look at the report further, you see that the governor's response is that, look, we have a shortage of post-primary teachers in Adamawa State.
5,000.
Yeah, we had 5,000. We could only afford
1,540.
Exactly. And we started this process in 2018. And what's more, we were giving these people training so that they would be fit for employment. So it's not. It's always good not to have a knee-jerk reaction to these things. But some of these appointments are made in bad faith. And what is also a sad thing, I'm speaking as somebody who I remember having done a case for a state government which unexpectedly lost the elections in 2003, and it hadn't paid my fees. And it took about 2 administrations before the state government acknowledged that that our bill should be met. So it's a two-way street. And of course, you remember, I mean, in countries like Britain, the turnover is a lot faster. But you remember, yes, remember there was one Labour, either in the Ministry of Finance or Budget. He left the sort of, it was supposed to be a joke. Yes. There's no money left.
No money left.
But
and the successor waved it to the media.
It came back to haunt him.
The successor waved it to the media and said, "See, is this a joke or what?"
Well, he didn't think, he presented it as though it wasn't a joke, and that the outgoing government has spent all the money and crippled the nation, and therefore gave the incoming administration a whipping boy or a scapegoat for years and years of government failure. And of course, this is what we see here, that part of this, these complaints are being made because there is genuine cause for concern about the integrity of the way the money is being spent. But part of it is setting up a series of excuses to say, well, I would have done it, but you see, this person who was there, this is the mess that they made.
Yes.
And
there is one instance where banks have been warned
yes.
and cautioned against giving arbitrary loans and overdrafts. to outgoing governors and,
Well, we've actually
and their
seen-
commissioners.
Yes, we've actually seen cases where, I mean, of course, a bank that decides to give a personal loan to a commissioner or anybody, that's the bank's own business, because they should know what their security is and they should know what they're lending the money for. But if money is being lent to the state government, then that again has to be something that is covered by the state's budget. You can't just
Which is
yes.
interesting you brought this up, because almost all the states, when we had some discussion on countdown sometime last year, early this year rather, the budgets were passed very quickly.
Yes.
Most states had less than a month. So it's not like the federal situation where we still have the budget pending and the administration will still keep spending the one from the previous year. So it's the fact that you have the money already budgeted for and they have no problems with that. They can just continue until they're out of office by May 29.
They can continue to spend it, but at the same time, if a bank gives money on behalf of the state, then the state is liable. However, what we've also seen is that beyond these sort of warnings not to, we've also seen attempts by some incoming governors to almost to get the banks to freeze the accounts of the state which they're coming into, because of the fear that the money is just going to be drained out of the
And
state's
the incumbent,
accounts.
so in the case of Imo State, where Ihedioha, with the incoming, alleges that Governor Korocha has withdrawn up to 17 billion for 17 billion naira for what he describes as inexplicable purposes. Governor Korocha says the state doesn't have 17 billion to withdraw in cash, and then has warned Ihedioha to stop impersonating him. You know, you should stop going around to institutions saying I'm the governor. You know, freeze the account, stop giving out money. So he has warned Ihedioha to stop There's only one governor at a time.
That's true.
There's only one governor at a time. If Ihedioha says anything as a governor, he's an impersonator and will be treated as such.
And yet,
I'm not quite sure what the penalty is, but
and yet, as the governor who is there now, they can almost physically feel the power draining out of them. Some of them, of course, have set up for themselves juicy berths in the National Assembly, but those berths in the National Assembly don't go with any immunity. So they need to be very careful about making sure that anything that they do can stand the test, can stand scrutiny. Because if they can't, and the EFCC or other bodies are brought in, it may be it may no longer be a question. Although I know that the previous situation was, as Senator Shehu Sani so memorably said, insecticide for your political enemies and deodorant for those who are coming onto your own side. But it may no longer be that treatment.
In Oyo State, so Makinde, who is succeeding Ajimobi.
That's another case where the governor was not able to get his preferred candidate.
So there is this big contract of 33 excavators to boost agricultural production, safety, and rescue operations. So Makinde says, yeah, but why is he giving out this, awarding this contract in his last days? And Ajimobi says, I actually saw it on telly. He was waving his hand in the air. He said, I promised that you will govern to the last minute to sustain his developmental strides, and that this is in keeping with his promise. So he can't he's not going to break his promise to govern until the last minute. So he's not going to give in to blackmail. He's not going to.
It's very difficult because the fact is that if those contracts, if those excavators are being bought at a reasonable price, then an incoming governor cannot just reverse anything that's done without being exposed to challenge by the contractors.
Where can they draw the line, like in the Oyo State situation, the excavators and their interest is carrying out urban renewal, which will include demolishing structures and perhaps winning for him bad capital before he to say. Where do you draw the line?
Well, it's difficult because if the governor creates a lot of problems like demolition of houses and so on in the name of urban renewal, and then his incoming has to either pay compensation or to restore the people to the houses. The real penalties are political, or the real sanctions are political ones, because while the outgoing governor may have this après-moi le déluge, all the problems should come after me type of approach.
I'm glad you interpreted it.
When you hear après-moi French,
it means that, look, there'll be a flood after me, but basically it will be when I'm gone. It won't be my problem. And, they may adopt that kind of approach, but they are government is a continuum, so are political parties and so are political ambitions. And if they find that they are too closely associated with evil done to the people of the state, then it will mean that instead of being able to position themselves on a good footing for a comeback, they will find that actually that the people will say, whatever else happens, neither you nor anybody that you are mentioning or you are recommending to us is going to be somebody that we want to see.
Just on a last note on this, so there is an allegation that 30 billion naira worth of contracts were awarded in one day, and the governor-elect says this is very suspicious and curious, and described it as an aberration, especially when there are other debts that
as old as 2011
that
haven't been
that
paid.
have not been paid. So, I mean, is this a red flag? Is this something?
It's certainly a red flag. It has to be a red flag. And as I said, that where the activities of the outgoing governor cannot stand scrutiny, they no longer enjoy any immunity which can prevent them from being asked back to account. I mean, another experience of mine was...
some of them may be walking straight into jail.
No, you don't walk straight into jail, but you certainly walk into continued invitations from the EFCC. Now, it's obviously because of the their closeness to their relationship with the party in power at the center. There may be some idea that the EFCC is not. But it's important to remember that many of the complaints will amount to state offences. So whether the EFCC chooses to act or not, it will still be something that the state attorneys general can take up. We saw a lot of threat of that in River State in 2015 when Governor Amechi was leaving power. Whether it's amounted to anything yet is difficult to say, whether that's because there's nothing for it to amount to or because people are saying, well, there but for the... I don't want to set a bad precedent, which is another problem.
There was a panel, some investigation, which came out with some reports claiming that Amechi had more or less undone the states.
But in the end, nothing further. And as I said, he doesn't enjoy any immunity. So one always has to ask oneself: is it a system where what is good for the goose needs to be good for the gander? Well, the integrity deficit, the ethics deficit, and the accountability deficit.
Somebody mentioned that. He said this what is good for the goose is good for the gander one day. And somebody said, what is a gander?
The gander, I believe, is a female or a male goose. I have no idea. Some kind of poultry anyway.
All right. We have to take a break now for
Yes.
us.
Yes. So I want to say thank you very much for joining me on the ideas segment. I'm not going to be here next week because I'm not going to be here, but I've no doubt that the countdown will continue next week, as it will continue in a few short minutes from now. So we'll be with you in a fortnight's time.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And please remember to follow Ideas Radio at Ideas Radio NG and Ayo Obe at Nijama.
All right. So let's take a quick break. We come back.